I don't know how long I had this curse, but every boy I kiss dies. It sounds crazy. You probably think I'm a lunatic, but it's true. I have a death kiss. My kiss kills. I first found out in high school with my first boyfriend ever. It was in 7th grade, and we were at his birthday party, and we were holding hands. I was so nervous, and I didn't really know what to do. But then, my boyfriend asked me to go with him to look at the chickens in the coop behind the back. So I followed him, and then he kissed me. It was very awkward, and it was only a 2-second kiss. But still, it was my first time. I was happy I managed to get my first kiss. But my boyfriend almost immediately said he didn't feel so good. We went back to the main party, and he told his mom he wanted to leave because his head was aching. They left, and that was the last time I saw him. Because 2 weeks later, he passed away of unknown causes. I didn't think at the time it was because of me. Why would I? I just assumed he had gotten some terrible disease or illness. And I was heartbroken. That death really messed me up. And of course it did. No one as young as I was should go through something like that, let alone if they were your boyfriend. Then I was in senior year, and I had my first kiss since my late boyfriend passed. It was with a really sweet guy, and we were both really nervous. I kissed him, but then the same thing happened. He felt instantly unwell, and he told me he needed to go. I had deja vu as I was thrown back to a past memory, to when I had my first kiss. Why was the same thing happening again? I was shocked to hear he passed away a few days later. I was distraught. I couldn't believe it. I fell into depression then, as I had suffered 2 tragedies in such a short amount of time. I started to suspect it was me. It couldn't be coincidence that they died right after I kissed them, right? But no, that was ludicrousy. That couldn't be true. That just wasn't possible. But still, after that, I was always wary around boys. I told my parents about it, and they said I was being silly. It wasn't my fault. I shouldn't blame myself for something that was impossible. But I was still unconvinced, so they took me to the doctors, and they said nothing came up on the reports or scans. I was harmless, or so they said. That calmed me down a bit, and I had to admit, it was pretty crazy to believe a kiss could kill someone. I supposed it may have been my grief, mixed with the circumstance of it all, that made me initially believe I was the killer, my kiss. But after the doctor assured me that wasn't so, that I was harmless, I relaxed, and I moved on with my life. I was still shocked, however. I had to go through loads of therapy, and it was a while before I could go back to school. But then, in college, I finally felt ready. I finally felt ready to date again. I was at this frat party, and there were so many boys there, but I was hesitant. But I promised to let myself enjoy my time there. I had a lot of friends, and we all partied and danced. I was in the kitchen filling up my drink when a guy came up behind me. I didn't even know him really, but he was obviously drunk. And then, out of nowhere, he leaned over and kissed me on the mouth. It was just a quick peck, but I was scared, nevertheless. I had only had 3 kisses in my life, including that one, and 2 of them had resulted in the boy dying. I watched the guy carefully to see if anything had come of it, but he seemed fine. He didn't look ill. He didn't ask to go home straight away. He just slurred about in his drunken state, and it seemed he was fine. I was so thankful. I breathed a massive sigh of relief. Finally, my fears weren't real. I could relax. I could live my life without worrying all the time. I was annoyed at that guy for kissing me out of nowhere. But at the same time, I was relieved at the confirmation that I didn't have a deadly kiss. But then, the next day, I was in my friend's dorm room when a girl barged in. "Have you heard?" she cried. "Heard what?" I asked. "Tommy's dead." I felt my blood run cold. Tommy? He was the guy from last night. The guy who drunkenly kissed me. "You're kidding," I said in a shaky voice. "Please tell me you're kidding." "Why would I joke about something like that?" she replied, annoyed. "Apparently he went back to his dorm room last night, but didn't wake up again. They have no idea what happened." I stayed quiet. I was convinced. This was my fault. I killed Tommy. I killed him with my kiss. Should I tell them? No, but they wouldn't believe me, and I might go to jail. No, I wouldn't tell them, but I promised myself not to kiss another boy ever again. I couldn't risk it. It was a daunting promise, but I would keep it no matter what. But then, the 3rd year of college came around. I had not dated any guy. I had stayed single all that time. Sure, there had been some boys who had asked me out, who I would have loved to date, but I had rejected them. I couldn't risk their life. But then came this new guy, the sweetest, kindest, funniest, most amazing guy I had ever met. I really thought he was the best guy in the world. His name was Finn, and he was so kind. When we first met, we immediately clicked. I could tell we were made for each other. We talked for so long, and hours would go by and I wouldn't even realize it. Then, he asked me to go out with him. I didn't know what to do. I really liked him. He was so perfect, and I hadn't dated anyone for so long. I had been so good. I felt like I deserved it. So against my better judgment, I agreed. We went out the next day. I didn't want to tell him about the kiss. He would probably think I was a freak. So I let myself date him, but I would never let us get too close. I always stayed at least 2 meters away from him. He probably thought I was nervous or shy or something. Little did he know I had a deadly kiss. But then, one night, we were in Finn's dorm, playing cards. It was getting late, and I told him I should probably go back. I got up to leave, and we walked over to his dorm. I turned around to say goodbye, but then he was suddenly really close to me. My heart was beating so fast. Then, he kissed me. Out of nowhere, I pushed him away, panicking, watching for the signs of his body reacting to my lips, the headache, the unease, but nothing happened. He was just standing there, looking hurt after I pushed him away. And then, he raised a hand to his head, and he collapsed. I screamed, "Not Finn! Please, not him!" He went into shock and lost consciousness immediately. The death effect was getting even more instantaneous. I screamed. I tried to wake him up, and I don't know why, but I kissed him again. Anything to help him. And, miraculously, he woke up. His eyes fluttered open. I sobbed in relief, in disbelief. He was alive. I was so perplexed. How could that happen? But I didn't care too much about the how. I was just grateful that he was alive again. Maybe my kiss wasn't deadly any longer. Maybe I had grown out of it. While these hopeful thoughts plagued my mind, I took Finn to the hospital, just to be sure. On the drive there, we took Finn's car. I told him about my curse, about my deadly kiss. He thought I was joking at first, but once I told him about my past boyfriends, then about Tommy, and then about what happened just then with him, he stopped laughing. "Wait, you mean it?" he said in a serious tone. I nodded. "I don't know why, but that's just how it is." "Then how come I'm still alive?" he asked. "I don't know. Maybe you're immune or something? I kissed you again? I don't know. I thought it might help." I guess it did. He scratched his chin. "Maybe it has something to do with antibodies. Maybe the first kiss dealt the thing that would have killed me, but the second one gave me immunity." I shrugged. It doesn't matter. I told him we had to break up. He protested, but I told him we could never kiss again. We couldn't risk it. He was silent. Then he asked, why couldn't we still date then? I told him again we could never kiss, and he nodded, saying he heard me, but he still wanted to be with me. I was shocked, and then I started crying. He hugged me. I was still crying when we eventually got to the hospital. The doctor said he was fine. We told her Finn had just lost consciousness randomly. We didn't mention my curse. When we got home, we made a pact never to kiss again. Whatever had brought Finn back to life was a miracle. I wasn't going to risk that by kissing him again. For a whole year, we continued dating. We had the best time. We chatted, we went on trips, we did everything together. It seemed not to matter that we couldn't kiss, but it was still so sad. Why did I have to have this curse? Why me? What did I do wrong? On our 1-year anniversary, we went to a lake that had frozen over in the winter. It was so stunning. The night was scattered with stars, and the icy surface of the lake glistened in the moonlight. It was so perfect. We had brought our ice skating shoes, so we walked down and hopped onto the ice. It seemed stable enough. We started to skate around, me an awkward, clumsy mess, Finn skating gracefully around doing spins. We held hands and skated around. It was so romantic. But then, a splintering sound met our ears. We glanced down at the frozen surface on the lake and looked on in terror as cracks started to appear in the ground. "Quick, get out of here!" yelled Finn. We rushed ahead, and Finn pushed me away so I slid further from the weakening ground. But then I heard the horrific crunch of broken ice, and I looked back to see Finn stuck in the ground, his body submerged in the freezing water. I screamed and rushed back to him. Only his hands were poking out of the water now. I grasped his hands and struggled to heave him back onto the ice. Eventually, I pulled him from the water. I yanked him onto solid ground once again. I looked at his face. He was unconscious. His eyes were shut. His lips were blue. He felt frozen solid. I cried, calling for help, but no one was near us. He had water in his lungs, and I knew I had to perform CPR. But what if I made things worse? What if I killed him right now with my kiss? I would never forgive myself. But then I realized if I didn't do anything and I had missed that chance, I would never forgive myself either. I decided it was better to try than let him die. I performed CPR and he woke up. He was alive, then sputtered out water. Then he looked at me. What happened? He said. You were dying, I cried. I had to give you CPR. You? CPR? Then he gasped. Does that mean I'm immune to your kiss? I nodded. I think so. He smiled and then he kissed me again. I leapt back. What are you doing? I'm immune, remember? I hesitated. He was right. He was immune to my deadly kiss. Maybe that second kiss a year ago made him immune. I was so happy and I was crying with joy. Everything was going to be okay.